so hard going to work with those two ugly, ugly dudes.
It's a tough job.
I hope you demand a raise every year.
Look, I mean, I think with any job, if you're working with the same people that closely for now 5 years of your life, yes, of course we're a family. We've grown up together. The people that I'm closest with on the show, though, are Rick and Sarah, who played Donna and Lewis. Those are my buddies. Rick and I always go and get foot massages together. It's our own off-camera version of mudding, I guess. So I'm excited to see everybody again.
Oh my God, we should have had a foot masseuse on stage with us. Wouldn't that be something?
He's the one that loves it so much. We get foot reflexology.
Do you think that they will ever, that you and
Rachel and Mike, will they ever get married? I hope so for them. I think the fans are owed that moment. You know, I mean, we watched them play this game of cat and mouse for so long and so many seasons, and sort of finally see their relationship come to fruition in that way. Look, it would be worth it. That wasn't the original ending, though, what we ended with at season 5. In the scripted version, they got married.
Really?
And then when that script came out, the first draft of it, myself and Gabriel both had a very guttural response to it. And Aaron Korsh, our creator, was on his flight from LA. And I called him and left him a voicemail saying, I know we're shooting this in 4 days, but I don't think this makes sense. Why would they get married like this?
Before he goes to prison.
And so he changed it.
Well, it was actually interesting. I read.
At the beginning of this clip, Harry's wife talks about other cast members. She goes on to explain what she thinks is an hilarious anecdote about going to get foot massages with one of the other actors, Rick. She laughs at this, demonstrating, of course, that Harry's wife has no real sense of humour, although it does get a laugh out of the interviewer. But there's silence from the audience. The laugh from the interviewer provides her with fuel, but the silence from the audience wounds. Harry's wife thinks that she's utterly hilarious and that everything that she says where she thinks it's funny, you should recognise that too. You'll notice that she realises there's been no response from the audience. She doesn't perceive that as wounding. That's what her narcissism does in the subconscious. But there is that momentary pause as it washes over her that she didn't receive a response. That threatens her sense of control, and the narcissism responds by making her feel anxious, because there isn't the provision of anticipated fuel from the audience, and it threatens the sense of control by them not laughing at her amazingly hilarious anecdote. Momentarily, she's weakened and feels anxious, and this is demonstrated by the fact that she immediately then starts playing with her hair in a very obvious manner. Harry's wife then moves on to talk about the fact that the scripted version was different from that which had actually been shot, and that in the scripted version, her character and that of Mike were going to get married. And she then explains that when the first draft of that script came out, myself and Gabriel, not sure who that is, but anyway, had a, wait for it, very guttural response to it. So picture the scene. Harry's wife is handed her script. She reads through it and then immediately goes, or such like, because she has a guttural reaction to it. She makes some growling noises. Of course, we all know she means visceral, but this isn't the first time that Harry's wife's lack of intelligence has shone through, because she regularly muddles up the words. She says guttural when she means visceral. She says archetypes when she means stereotypes. And there are other examples beyond those. But it's quite entertaining to see that this, back in 2016, was replicated in 2022. So the last 6 years she's been going around saying, I had a really guttural reaction to the crispy seaweed that I've just eaten. Everybody going, what? You started going, how extraordinary. Of course, then she shows her grandiosity and sense of entitlement, and how what's contained within the script threatens her sense of control, because she then explains that she calls the creator and states, I know we're shooting this in 4 days, but I don't think this makes sense. So then he changed it. She shows her sense of entitlement to contact the creator just days before shooting to say, this isn't appropriate. Now, of course, actors regularly do give feedback to creators, writers, directors as to where they see their character is going. And often they end up with arguments about it, or changes are made, or they're not allowed. So what she did wasn't unusual, but understand it's again driven by her narcissism that reads the script, that sees it as a threat to control because she doesn't think that's the way that it should be. She exhibits her sense of entitlement by then responding and contacting the creator, hoovering him in effect, and saying, I know this will probably cause you an inconvenience and other people because we're shooting in a few days' time, but quite simply, my narcissism doesn't give a fuck about that. I want you to change this. And of course, she relays triumphantly to the studio audience here that he did. Look at the smug look on her face when she says that. She is so pleased with herself because she gains thought fuel from the memory of causing this adjustment to be made. And basically, she thinks she's great. But then there's no reaction from the audience to this recollection. No whooping, no cheering, no applause. Nobody going, all hail mighty Harry's wife about to be, for she is brilliant in telling creators what to do. She gets nada, niente, nothing. She's again wounded, and then that causes her to look away. And you see there the anxiety creeping into the eyes as a consequence of the wounding, whilst the smile stays stuck on her face. The narcissism isn't able to respond appropriately. The wounding shows in her eyes, but the grin or the smile is still plastered on her lips, demonstrating the almost robotic way by which it responds. Let's continue with another clip.
Q&A with him, with the creator, and with Aaron, and he said that initially, I think Mike was supposed to go to prison in season 1, at the end of season 1.
Well, you know more than I do. I didn't know that.
So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like,
Yeah.
that would have, like, the show would have,
Been completely different.
right?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron is so talented, and he's also so hands-on, and to be able to be on a show this far into it, where he is that committed to making sure it really has an air of authenticity, he'll be one of the first people to say it. He can create that world for us, but we've each individually been living our characters, so we're going to see it through a different scope, and he's always open to hearing our point of view on that. And he even said himself he couldn't decide if he wanted Mike and Rachel to be married or not at that point. So he had been waffling and then ended up changing it. I'm really happy that he did.
And you just said that you want them to get married for the fans. How do you envision it? Do you want him to, like, somehow I guess, can you plea bargain your way out? I don't know how that really works. You're the lawyer.
Oh, no, Rachel's not a lawyer yet.
I'm like,
she has no idea, nor do I. No, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how it's going to play out because, of course, with Mike in prison now, Rachel's world opens up in a very different way. I mean, one of the first things I said to Aaron was, oh, no, does this mean Logan Sanders is coming back? Because the fans got so mean when that happened. I mean, people didn't want to see Rachel misstep. She has been a moral compass so much on the show. So that was a really big problem for a lot of fans. And I understand that. But with that said, she's human. And I think if Mike is away at prison, we want to trust that their love can endure that. But she's going to have a lot of other catalysts in her life now that might rock the boat.
And do you have any idea of what's coming up, or not until the first table read?
I have a sense of what's happening in the first episode. Which I cannot tell you any of. I'm so sorry.
I always try to, like, get people
a little
to
bit.
spill a little, and they, everyone's been so well trained at this point.
We are well trained, but I think what's good about that is if you get everyone to spill just a little bit, you can connect all the dots, and then you'll have the whole story.
Unless
so it's worth it.
Spilling the fake story.
Right, true. We're not that deceptive. No, we're not that good. So I do know what's happening in that first episode, and it's really going to introduce that world of Mike's new life in prison, what happens with the firm, and then, of course, how they're going to get out of this.
And what of yourself do
Harry's wife discusses Aaron, the creator. Notice that she goes to her buzzword of authenticity, where she talks about the air of authenticity. Here, she's asserting control over the interviewer and the audience by talking about the creator, but triangulating in a benign way because she's complimentary about him. The interviewer then asks about where's it going to go to next, how's Mike going to get out of prison, is he going to plea bargain? and then, of course, says, well, you're the lawyer, to which that is challenge fuel. Harry's wife deflects from that by pointing out, no, I'm not a lawyer and neither's Rachel. Now, as I understand it, Rachel's a paralegal. Lawyer is a generic term. For instance, in the United Kingdom, lawyer, if somebody's a lawyer, that could mean, for instance, that they are a barrister, a solicitor, a trainee solicitor, a paralegal, an in-house government lawyer, in-house counsel. Lawyer is an umbrella term for an individual that has some level of qualification operating within the legal system. It could also possibly be stretched as well to talk about, for instance, a clerk to the court or a judge, because they're involved in the law. So for her to say, well, Rachel's not a lawyer, isn't exactly accurate, because a paralegal is a form of lawyer. Nevertheless, it's a minor point, but shows that she doesn't really understand her character to the extent that she believes that she does, which goes really to the relatively low cognitive function that Harry's wife exhibits, although she thinks she's far cleverer than she actually is. She then goes on to talk about the fact that Mike's in prison, and she comments that she asked, did that mean that Logan Sanders comes back? And she then says that the fans get so mean about that. Again, she gets no reaction from the audience as she attempts to draw them into responding to her talking about this aspect of the show. Notice that this is the third time that she's sought to draw them in with a joke or some kind of, as she would call it, guttural reaction, and she fails. Notice this shows again the mid-range nature of her narcissism. It's simply not learning. Even though it happened very recently, the compartmentalization of her narcissism is such that it's forgotten already about that wounding that had occurred and still attempts to draw in the audience and fails for a third time. This manifests, of course, as wounding, as a threat to control, which creates anxiety, and you see that this time we get the fluttering eyelids, the blinking, the rapid blinking, which I've explained in parts passing. The interviewer then asks, do you know what's coming up, or do you not know until the first table read? Harry's wife goes, I have a sense of what's going to happen. Yes, Harry's wife and her psychic powers, that she's able to have a sense of what's about to occur next. This is exhibiting her grandiosity. But of course, then, as a form of belittlement and condescending behaviour, she says, but I can't tell you, and engages in the false laugh, and I'm so sorry, except of course we know that she's far from sorry. We then get, of course, as it moves back to the next question coming along, those dead eyes once again, as she is unable to segue in an appropriate fashion from one displayed emotion to the next, and we get another glimpse of what's going on underneath. This is excellent at demonstrating the various ways that Harry's wife is compartmentalizing and that her narcissism causes us to portray a particular face, and then, before it goes to the next one, there's a little gap, almost like a commercial break, and then you see that dead-eyed look again, exhibiting the fact that there simply is nothing there. More interesting observations, a thoroughly excellent interview in terms of understanding her narcissism in action, and there's more to come in part 3. Join me there.